Welcome, guys. We are back here in a new studio. Yeah. We've been gone for quite some time, and in the meantime, we've not only been working on cars, getting ready for SEMA, but also putting together our official podcast studio to hopefully bring more routine content to everybody. Also, we plan to bring in some guests, and we want to be able to get a little more in depth in things automotive related and also not automotive related. So we figured, why not invest in building a little spot for us to hang out?
Got our own studio now.
I know, it's pretty cool. A lot better than pushing that stuff around the shop. Yep. And it was good for what it was for, but we always wanted to have a spot that we could actually get set up, bring routine content to you guys. Makes it easier for us to get off the shop floor, sit down and actually talk about things rather than trying to shuffle everything in there. So it feels good to be in here. First time recording in here, so bear with us, guys, if we have a few issues here. We're going to be tapping off of our phone, getting some topics that we've already brushed up on that we want to talk about today with you guys, and kind of just see where today's new podcast goes.
Yeah, it's like season 2.
Season 2, 1.5, whatever you want to look at.
It's a fresh start. We're excited.
We are excited. So I think the first thing on our list is obviously we want to bring everybody up to what the studio is this place. We're going to have room to 3 to 4 people to come in and actually sit down and share their story. We've got some great guests that I think we can bring in that we've talked to already ahead of time to share some insight on the people that we work with in the industry, including some of our partners, some customers, and also maybe even some other complementary businesses that we do work with that help support our goals here at Label. And ultimately, what we always wanted to have happen here with this podcast is kind of bring some truth behind the scenes. People kind of always see the flashy stuff. They see the cool cars. They see all the content that's online anyway that everybody else does, which doesn't necessarily correlate to the way that we do our business and handle our cars and things like that. So if anything, I wanted to bring a little more in-depth, not only the people, but also the cars, the stories, just everything surrounding that.
I think that's what's cool too, is like we talk and meet so many interesting people, and it's like we hear those stories of like, how'd you get started making carbon? It's like, that's such a crazy thing to get into, but now bringing those conversations here, I think it's going to be really cool.
Yeah, for sure. There's some really crazy stories out there, guys, and hopefully we'll be able to get some really good guests to show you guys, and you guys will appreciate that content. But in the meantime, we've been away for, it's had to been what, 3 months?
I think longer than that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So it's been a while. We've been to SEMA and back.
A lot has happened.
A lot has happened. A lot has happened at SEMA and before SEMA. I think part of what we wanted to do is the SEMA content's going to take an episode all on its own. I know you and I talked about maybe brushing on that a little bit today, but I think there's so much to dive into as far as, what you guys saw on the YouTube build series to where we got to on the show floor, along with where we went after coming back from SEMA.
All the bumps and hurdles along the way too.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a lot of content there to kind of unpack, and we're also still finishing the SEMA build series because the nature of the beast is you never have time to get the content done while you're actually building the car. So I think that will slowly come out as well as the podcasts come out. So the timing should be pretty good. But I thought it'd be cool if we just go back and talk about some of the projects that, if you guys haven't followed us through the summer, some of the things that we've been working on, and maybe we're able to overlay some of those images of those vehicles. But let's start with you, Justin. You've had a busy week every week.
Never ending. But
it's usually never ending for you. You guys have seen in some of the build videos, I will grab Justin off of his work and bring him over. Justin is my right-hand man. He can do everything I can do for the most part, and over the years has learned all the tips and tricks that are needed.
I wouldn't say all of them, but
not all
most
of them, but a good majority of them where we feel comfortable just saying, you got it,
Yeah.
and that's really important because we are such a small business that if Justin can take some responsibility on the floor for me and I can get to meetings or get to some design stuff, get over and look at some quality of maybe carbon, some of the turbo work stuff that we've done. Usually we do that together, but sometimes it requires us to split ways and to know that we don't have to shut down completely. That's really important. So you guys should know, like, the way that we manage our schedule, that it's intentional in the fact that we want to make sure we allow ourselves enough time to not only do our own personal jobs, but also to cover any extra stuff that may come up. Because when you're a small business and you don't have 2 or 3 other guys to take responsibility on, you may end up driving across the state one day because you have to pick up a part.
100%. And that's what I don't think people understand is, like, leading up to SEMA, like, all the backlog and, like, all the work that needs to be done just on the computer with meetings. I mean, we'll get into all that, but, like, it's unbelievable, like, the time outside of the shop that you have, as well as, like, the meetings that you have upstairs, the computer time. And, like, during that time, nothing's getting done on the shop floor with customer builds and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm grateful to be able to, be handy in that way and help out when I can. And, we're such a small team that there's no other option really, which is awesome. I love doing it too.
It is. And the nice thing is to have you guys that own businesses and run businesses. It's nice to have someone that you can trust that has the same vision and work ethic and things that you do, so that vice versa. If you came to me and say, hey man, I really need some help, that you're not going to be left out in the dark. You're not going to have to struggle. You know that somebody will be there to have your back in those situations. And that goes the same for me. And that's why we've been able to be successful, is just, you're looking at the 2 guys that are able to manage our way through each and every project. And everything is not perfect. And we've made several mistakes, and it's cost us money, cost us time. We've had to tell clients, we need your car for an extra week, or you need to bring it back to us. That's just the nature of the beast, guys. If anybody's telling you that they do perfect work, it's just not the truth. And I'm proud to say that we're very open and upfront and honest about everything. So, if we do have a mistake or we need to fix something, we'll tell the customer, hey, this didn't go as expected, and we're going to replace it.
100%.
And we'll always say, we'll make it up to you in some other way. So if we're going to do some extra work for them in the past, it's never a money conversation here at Label, which we're fortunate of. And you guys that know how kind of we quote things and how we approach our business isn't necessarily money centrally focused. Of course, the business needs money to operate, but we don't do everything based off of money.
It's based off of passion.
And that's you hear people talk about it. It's a passion project, blah, blah, blah. And the thing that sucks about nowadays is people use all those keywords, for right and maybe wrong like circumstances, and sometimes that gets lost in translation because people just say it so much, but they don't really mean it. And I think anybody that does business with us, they come into the shop, they see what we put into it, they see a finished project, they know that it's all passion for us,
And the bumps along the way, being transparent with that. I mean, not many shops do that. We've seen some things that people hide and all that stuff. And if you're not upfront with it, you lose that trust and that connection with the clients.
I mean, how many times have you had to replace panels?
I don't even want to go there.
But
Way too many.
Justin's had parts that I would look at and I say, hey man, we should probably redo this. And he's redone it because I wasn't happy with it and I thought it wasn't good enough. And then we've also had it where clients were maybe unhappy with a piece, and we're like, yeah, no problem. There's never an argument of you're right or we're right, you're wrong. Never pointing fingers. If it's a problem,
let's just get it taken care of.
Let's just take care of it. Yeah. And at the end of the day, the money always takes care of itself. And we're not here to get rich off of one build, one job, one customer. Our whole goal is longevity. We want you to rely on us. We want you to trust us and know that we're making the best decision in your interest, as if it was our own.
Exactly.
Our own vehicle. So I think let's talk about some of the projects that you've had coming through your way the past couple months. I don't know where you want to start.
I know it's been an eclectic group of vehicles,
that's
which is
cool.
It's fun and interesting. Could try to kind of change it up. Go from a Bronco Raptor color change, which strip everything completely off. Probably one of the most disassembled cars. It was insane because you have to do the roof rails, take the roof off. It was crazy, but it turned out phenomenal.
Yep.
Now
And tell people you wrapped the car in, obviously we disassembled everything. You wrapped all the jams and stuff, but don't forget about the cage and things like that.
It was insane. I've never wrapped like literally almost a roll bar that goes, through the roof there, and so many little details like the back of the tailgate when you open it, that's all painted. So you don't think about that when you're, wrapping, but then you got to cover all the silver that needs to be covered. So it's really intense job to get everything covered and make sure there's no silver showing through once you reassemble. And it's fun to disassemble that stuff, but making sure it goes back together properly, having everything bagged and tagged. It's a pretty big task. And the color change is completely different than paint protection film, obviously. But we have a lot of PPF jobs that have been really cool lately. And the one that's standing out right now is the Ford GT. That was a cool opportunity to, get that phone call and be able to work on, one of those poster car that you just never think that you would get your hands on. Most of those are tucked away in collections, which I think this one's gonna kind of end up that way. But it was a really cool opportunity. It really tests my talent because I want to try to make it the best possible. And parts on those cars, it's not like the modern cars where everything's kind of broken up and you can kind of piece, everything together. There's some goofy seams that you need to do. The rear deck lid it was like, I forgot how many it was. It was like 98 little, cutouts that I had to go and, hand cut all those because there's no templates for it. It was a pretty big job, but it turned out well. And, following that, we had quite a few Porsches come in. One of the new GT3 RSs.
That car's nasty.
That was a really cool project. Honored to be able to do that one. And he tracks the car, which is proper. That's what you want to do with one of those cars. So
we did double. You did double, right?
Double. Put a bunch of impact on the side of the car, rear wheels, front wheels, just to make sure everything's protected for the track. Kind of treat it as a tear off, so your base, PPF stays solid, and then you can peel off all those impact strips.
And that's something to keep in mind for you guys that do track your car, that you can double up PPF. I think there's some understanding of that in the marketplace, but also I think there's some misunderstanding if you can, if you can't, if you can take that top layer off without, ruining the bottom layer.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a little different. So if you do vinyl wrap and then PPF over, most of the time you compromise your vinyl wrap just because the adhesive on the PPF is stronger than the vinyl wrap. So when you pull the PPF, it's going to pull the vinyl too. But with PPF doubling that up, you're able to pull that top layer of PPF off, and then you still have, your base layer. That way, when you do a full car, obviously the whole point of doing a full car is not to have the seams. But if it's a track car or if you have high impact areas, it just makes sense to double it up just to, preserve the base layer as much as possible.
Yep, for sure. And then you had a run of Ferraris. We've had several different Ferraris in recently.
The 296 was probably, I'll have to say it, I think it was probably the most difficult panel I've ever laid PPF on.
Really?
Was the rear quarter on the 296. I don't know, maybe there's templates out now. We got a pretty early one. And bulking that rear quarter. It took multiple attempts. It's just a weird shape. It kind of goes back down and then comes back up. And it was a lot. I try to pre-plan, like whenever I lay a panel, I try to pre-plan, like where am I going to stretch it? Where am I going to tack it? And that one was just goofy. I don't know, man. It was a good challenge though. I like, the interesting projects like that where it pushes you and it makes you a better installer when you have challenging, there's people that just want to wrap Cybertrucks because you can just, lay them on, it's super flat and that's the money making. But, I love the more interesting projects. And that's why, the SEMA cars, the wide bodies, when people see those fully wrapped and stuff, it's more of an art than it is just an installation. And that's what I like about it.
Yeah. That's something that I think we'll talk about during our SEMA episode. We met some cool guys out of Canada that have a wrap shop, tint shop. Young group of guys, probably there were 6 or 7 of them. And they were just amazed. They spent a ton of time at the booth. Very complimentary of your work. They've never seen a wrap like that. And again, guys, as the build series come out, you'll see, we literally got panels. And I think we talked about it in the earlier episodes we got panels with, I think 11 days left, 10 days left. So we didn't have anything fit to the car permanently. We did all of that in those final days. Justin and I fit everything along with the fender liners, all of the guards, everything that needed to be done. And then once we did all of the alterations to the body, made sure everything mounted and got all our hardware the way we wanted it, that's when we started to actually wrap all of the panels. So it only gave us a couple days to wrap everything on the car. And it was still in an expedited fashion. You know, that, like you're talking about that Raptor we had in here for a couple of weeks.
Yep.
And you had the time to spend and really go over. And if you didn't like something, you could redo it. Well, in this particular case, we didn't.
Yep. You get one shot.
And I think still that's the testament to your work ethic. And I think it's also probably a lot of your history where you were forced to work in circumstances that maybe weren't the best.
Well, yeah, we don't have to dive down that path,
I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm just saying, like, you worked in a lot more challenging situations or circumstances to get stuff done. It may have not been on that level, but you've been in, I guess, adverse conditions before to wrap. And you're like, as long as I get the time with the car, I'll get it down, you know, and it'll look good. So I think, and also you were very strong in your opinion of Evolve or APA using their film, the film that we ended up landing on that we liked, and you were confident using that. And that's, I think, a huge part.
Yeah, being able to trust the film is, you know, one of the most important parts, because you never know. You never know what's gonna, you know, come from inlays and seams and door jams and stuff like that. And we've had it in the past with multiple manufacturers that, you know, you think you trust the film, and then you get there, and, you know, the weather changing and temperatures and stuff, you know, areas pop up, and that's just kind of the nature of it.
It is.
But there's something to be said about like that tight time crunch, and I think we both kind of love it in a way. It sucks for a little bit, but like the adrenaline gets pumped, like just knowing that you only have one shot at it. There's just something about that. It's like, all right, this is my time to just kind of go after it and let me shine. And it's just, you know, it's fun to get down to the wire and crunch and see what you can actually do. It's, you know, it's kind of like doing a marathon or something where you're, you know, doing a physical challenge. It's something where it's like, okay, this is, you know, what I think I'm best at, and this is, I have a shortened timeline on it, and I'm going to try to make it my absolute best in that timeline, which is completely out of the norm of doing a client car. But there's something fun about doing that for SEMA and knowing that it's going to be on that showcase.
Right. Yeah, that's a good analogy. I never thought of it that way, but it's almost like our Super Bowl every year, you know, because you prepare throughout the year, getting ready, you know, months and months of preparation and stuff that is planning, you know, the time, like you talked about it earlier, the time that we actually spend on the floor working on the car is so like minuscule compared to the time that it takes to coordinate, to design, to get everything that you need to build.
It's got to be like 5% of the time. It's unbelievable if people actually knew that.
That's it. The amount of time we actually get to sit and work on the car compared to everything else is like staggering. So most of the time at SEMA, guys, we're looking at the car for the first time under real lights. I mean, almost every time the car, we pull it out of here and we literally see it outside for 10 seconds and it goes right into the trailer, and we pack the next day and we're on a flight.
We're gone.
We wait for the car to show up. So it's a really, I mean, I think that is like the draw to me. I don't like, you know, the stress that's related. That's why I'm like managing all of the relationships, our parts, things like that is so important to make sure that we have the time to build the car we want. But also like that excitement of, I just know that feeling now. It's like, so when I get to Vegas, I'm like, okay,
take that deep breath.
We're here now. The car just has to get here. And then like that day when the car arrives, we're like, dude, we're
she
here.
Is.
And we're on adrenaline, you know, and we're like, man, is this going to be good? You know, what are people going to think? And then it's that time pulling it in, everybody looking at it, you know, behind the scenes as you pull it in to position. So it's like, we're all sharing in that same experience of like the excitement. We're all here. We're all here for the same cause.
100%.
And we've worked on it for so long to get to where it is there that it's just a really special feeling. You know, it's stuff that I'll never, I think, forget.
Yeah, I know. That's those memories you can't you can't forget them.
No.
It's cemented into it's our identity now, and that's
It is.
I never thought it would be that way.
Right.
And it's so fun to get to this season of the year and know that grind's coming, and everybody around us knows that it's coming.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But, yeah, let's not dive too far into SEMA because
Okay,
I think maybe next episode we'll go down that path.
Yeah.
But I think let's maybe talk about some projects that you've been working on. One that comes to mind, maybe go over kind of the technical build, because that's a new and interesting car that was, a pretty cool project.
Yep. I can't remember the actual name for that color blue, but it's a client that we've done other cars with. He got that Technica spec'd, and it came in really cool. I liked that combo. It had the gray accents on the interior. And kind of everything with him, he always likes the stance to be right, the wheels and tires to be presented right, have a good sound, a good tone on the exhaust, and maybe some carbon bits, and when we got that project in, there weren't any aftermarket carbon available pieces yet.
Yep.
So we had that conversation ahead of time and said, why don't we wait until somebody comes out with a kit that the styling fits, we can get all of the carbon, make sure the carbon matches, because the biggest thing we don't like to do, guys, is like mix and match different manufacturers of carbon, because everybody has their idea of quality and the way the weave should be and things like that. So on these level cars, we don't mix and match that stuff. We wait for like a cohesive kit or something that matches the factory. So I feel like it's really done right.
Yep.
But we were able to do the Rift exhaust.
Well, let's talk about the sound of that car when it came in. It was unbelievable.
That was probably his biggest complaint.
It was insane.
I don't know what Ferrari did.
Lambo.
Excuse me. Yeah, I don't know what Lambo did, but we looked at, when we took that exhaust off, didn't it have like an extra auxiliary pipe or something that went from the muffler to the tips? There was something
weird system.
There was something different with it. I don't remember exactly, but it got quiet. And the first thing the client noticed when he drove it home was like, dude, this thing gets insanely
It's dead silent.
quiet. Yeah, like almost like a hybrid or something. And he also has an Evo, and the Evo didn't have that. Now on the Evo project, we didn't do the race exhaust. We did the valved exhaust because he had a concern of cold start and then driving out of the neighborhood and stuff like that being too loud. So we went ahead and played it safe and did the valved version
Of Rift on the Evo?
Of Rift, yeah. Long story short, he wasn't happy with the tone, and it was very different than the Performante that he had heard with the Rift on it that we had. So when we went to the Technica, he came to me and said, hey, Andy, we definitely got to do the exhaust again, but what's your thoughts? And I said, why don't we just forget about running valved, because you were unhappy with that, and we were considering how to make it louder, with the valved version without having to redo the exhaust, which we don't really have a great option. And he said, let's just do the race version, and that was perfect. I mean, the car sounded amazing. I think on our videos we did a couple flybys.
Oh, it sounds unbelievable.
We never, guys, we know we never get enough sound clips for you guys. We struggle so much with trying to capture enough content.
And over video, you can't ever portray what that actually sounds like.
So when you hear it in person, it's awesome. But beyond that exhaust, he was really happy with that. We didn't change out the tips, and we lowered the car with the adjustable suspension, so it retains nose lift and everything. We also ran, I think we put Novatec spacers and extended lugs on that, because he spec'd those black spider-like wheels.
Actually looked really good for an OEM wheel.
It looked awesome altogether. Then tinted, and then obviously you PPF'd it.
Yep.
And it was ready to go. But that car, it's a good-looking car. I like that car set up right.
There's something about a stanced out Huracan, no matter what model it is. When you get proper fitment and lowered, it just looks like a stealth bomber coming down the road.
Yep. It's amazing how different those cars look. That's the same with the R8. We have a ton of R8s over here. And I always tell guys, I'm like, dude, if you just lower the car and run some spacers, even with factory wheels, totally transforms it. And we've done a lot of those. I'd like to see more R8 guys get aggressive with it, like our first gen R8 guy that did that build with him, because that car completely is transformed.
It's unbelievable what you can do with one of those cars.
There's so many things on the market, good parts, good sound. Like it's a shame that more people aren't building those. Hopefully, in the next year or two, we'll get somebody that wants to, secondary owner. Cause I think that's probably it. A lot of guys spec them new and they like their spec.
Yeah.
So then after a couple of years, they're ready to do something. So maybe we'll see something like that.
The interesting thing is, like the Gen 2, we had a client that was interested in a wide body.
Yep.
There's not really many options out there for those.
Not at all. Not at all. That I think, we had talked about this a little bit, is like, where do we dive in further as far as taking like the design stuff that we've learned. And obviously with the Z06 program, I think that's really elevated over the first program, but where do we decide to take, those talents and try to create on the next platform? We've talked about what's the M5 Touring.
Yep.
Doing something possibly with that. We've talked about some Ferrari stuff. We talked about some McLaren stuff. And it's kind of like one of those things I don't really have an idea yet. It's like, I think when the opportunity presents itself and it seems to make sense, the biggest thing for me is I don't want to follow somebody's lead.
And it's hard to gauge the market too, because that's the hard part. I mean, that's what you're going into the dark with the Corvettes. That's an even crazier market, because you got Corvette guys that are, used to buying a $60,000 car versus an R8 Huracan guy that's, 200,000 plus.
Yep.
So it's a completely different market. So it's hard to say if those guys are willing to put in an extra $100,000 to $200,000 into it, an R8.
Yep.
You just don't know what that market looks like, because the car is way more expensive from the get.
I agree. We just need one of you R8 guys to come on in and say, just run with it.
We can get creative. Oh, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So what other projects kind of came through the shop over the past few months through the summer?
Yeah, there's been quite a few. But I think one of the things that we should probably talk about is all the urban projects and how that business has kind of come out of nowhere and starting to really boom, because we've been quoting a lot of the urban automotive builds. I think we probably talked, I don't know if we were doing the podcast then, but we probably talked about the first one, which was that 90 project. And we did the design kit on that with the wheels and flares and everything. And that looked really cool. And then we went ham with an XRS build. That's Urban Automotive. If you guys aren't familiar with Urban is like the top tuner in the Range Rover, Land Rover, Defender market. They're based in England, and the parts they make are phenomenal. They are the top tier as far as cost and how much it takes to build a car. But when you see a Urban Defender next to a standard Defender, even fully kitted, from the factory or whatever, it's like looking at a wide body versus a stock car.
It's unbelievable the difference it makes with that car.
It is. And to be honest, I mean, the amount invested into something like that isn't astronomical. I mean, for, $60,000, $70,000, you can throw absolutely everything at it. So you have essentially a full custom Defender built to your specs, colors, PPF, wheels, tires. It addresses everything, exhaust, all of that.
Light bar wing.
Yeah, light bar wing,
tune.
Carbon hood. Like, it's got everything. And the car sounds nasty, looks nasty. I think that really puts that car in competition with like a G-Wagon. Obviously, people look at the AMG and it's got a status behind it. But when you build one of those Defenders, I mean, it's hard to argue with it.
They're nasty.
I'm really excited to kind of see where that goes. We have a great relationship with Urban and also Miltech, who is Urban's distributor here in the United States. The people at Miltech we spent a night with at SEMA, which we'll talk about. But Britt and John and the team over there are amazing.
Hopefully get them at the podcast.
They got to get.
They got to come up to Michigan.
Now remember, Britt said she was going to come. So Britt, if you're watching this, we're going to hold you accountable come springtime.
Yep.
And we interviewed her. That's going to come out probably in the
next few weeks.
So you guys will be able to put a face to the name. Britt is amazing. There couldn't be a better. I think. What's her title? She is like the director of
North American sales.
Sales. Yeah. She is fun. She's outspoken. She stands up for whatever she believes in. She'll back you up in whatever situation you're in. And she's an insane car girl.
Yeah.
Her car is
unreal.
Justin's basically dream car that he'd like to be dailying.
Yeah.
We talked about it. It's an M2.
Yep, the new M2 fully, checking every box.
Yeah.
Checking every box.
She's got full livery on it and everything, and she drives it down in Nashville every day. So, I mean, really cool people there. And these are people we want to support. That's why we talk about them. There's nothing to hide there, whenever we can help support their brand, because they've supported us so much. And not because of just that, but because of the quality of the products that they're offering. I mean, when a customer comes to us and they ask us, hey, what are your thoughts about this, and this? Am I going to have issues? they're one of the first ones we talk about if they have an offering for that particular vehicle.
It's unbelievable when any kit that we've brought through the door, it's literally as much as a open the box, put it on the car as probably any parts that we see, besides like the Novatex and the big dogs. It's unbelievable the quality of those parts.
And that's what you guys gotta understand is very important, because the longevity of the quality on the car should match the quality of the car itself, because a lot of kits will look good for a year.
Yeah.
And then I dare you to go look at those parts after a year, especially wide bodies. Go look at wide bodies, carbon fiber, exposed carbon hoods, carbon near engine bays.
Oh, yeah.
You would be surprised at what you'd see after a year or two, and also after somebody's let the car sit outside. And even in pictures, the car will still look legit. But I dare you to walk up on that and see if it looks the same. And, everybody, when they build a car the first time and they're done with it and they show you, it looks great. But look at the build and make sure it stands, through the test.
And the cool thing with those Defenders is it's not too invasive either. You're not like typically when you wide body, you're cutting something out to apply the wide body, but it's an over fender piece that molds with the actual OEM wheel arch, and it just completely transforms that car. And it's insane, that XRS package one with the tune on it and the exhaust. It's almost hysterical, like being in that car and driving it, how fast it is. It like squats because it's on air and it just takes off, and
you drove
supercharged.
You drove that one downtown and stuff,
Carpathian edition.
Yeah,
it was insane. It was insane.
I think the SUV market here in Michigan is kind of different, because here everybody drives their cars year round. So while like in Cali, Florida, Texas, they drive their SUVs year round, but they don't necessarily drive them in the winter. And that's something that we have to keep in mind here when we're building these cars, is that if this client's going to drive this SUV that's fully kitted, wheels, tires, exhaust, all that stuff, that means we have to keep that in mind when we're installing the parts. That's why some of our installation methods are a lot more permanent, or really we're making sure that, listen, there's going to be no issue, because the change in temperature, if you guys aren't familiar with Michigan, in a month it'll be 30 below. Okay. In this summer it was 104. So
right before SEMA it was freaking 87 or something,
which makes no sense. So when you think about like components on a car, well, think about the flex and the way things move during heat and cold and shrinkage. All of that stuff has to be taken into account when we install something on a car here in Michigan. I mean, even the exotic cars, because those will go in storage, but not everybody keeps them in heated storage. So it may be in a cold warehouse someplace. It may get down to 10 degrees. You know what I mean? So those are things that we take into account when we install this stuff on customers' cars, because we want the kit to last the test of time. And if they have the car for 5 years, we want it to look like they've had it for 5 years, like from the day it's been new. Nothing's really changed. Maybe more wear and tear, but there's not a panel moving or gaps moving. We did a, not to bounce around, but we did that. What was that Range Rover with the Luma designs? Remember that?
CLR kit.
Yeah, we didn't do a lot of content behind that. I think we did a walk around to show like the before and after, but that's a perfect example. That car was built in Texas, shipped to Washington, and was dealt the elements in Washington, which are similar to here, cold. They get hot summers, and you saw what happened on that truck. Everything just started.
It was too bad
coming off.
Yeah, and then people go in there and try to repair things. They put household caulk to try to seal the fender flares back on. It was too bad, but we kind of recovered it and made it look somewhat back to the original state.
That's the thing. Like we have guys that have some cars in progress, or they've done some things, or they bought the car, it wasn't really like what they wanted. We've had a couple guys come over with wraps, hey, how can I salvage this wrap? And the business side of it would say, well, how can I make money off of this customer? They want to salvage some wrap. So what if I took a couple panels off and put this on, and I made a couple $100 here? That's great. That's not what we do. If you'd like to do that someplace else, we understand. We will always say no if we don't think that the result will be the same result that we could create if the car came to us
from the start.
Right.
Yeah.
So like a lot of times guys will get, hey, I have this hood, I have these side skirts, what can be done with them? I'll tell them that, we can improve this, but really this isn't the way to do it. And I personally wouldn't invest any more money into it. Sure. Could you live with it? Is it somewhat acceptable? Possibly. But at the end of the day, you know what you have there. You know the shortcomings. You know, as a vehicle owner, you guys all know your own car. You know the little bits on it that are damaged or the things that nag you about it. It's kind of similar in the custom car world. When you have something that's not done the right way, or you're like,
Yep.
you know, you feel a little shorted on it. So I always recommend somebody, if you're not prepared financially to do it the right way, we're probably not a good fit. You know, whether you go to a general repair shop or, you know, one of these other places that do accessory things, maybe that's a better fit for what they're trying to accomplish.
And that's another thing you stand behind too, is not bringing customer supplied parts in.
Absolutely.
And that for that exact reason of not knowing what's coming through the door.
And that's been, you know, everybody's been really understanding of it as of more recent. But when I first started doing that, you know, people are like, how come I can't just bring parts into you? And I learned that lesson, you know, years ago when some customers would bring in some parts from China that were like reproduction pieces of specifically Tech Art at the time.
Oh,
so
interesting.
there were a lot of Tech Art knockoff like GT street kits and side skirts and front splitters. And this one guy, I remember this was in Miami. I told him I wouldn't install that stuff, and he took his turbo. And now this is a big project. Still, it was still about a $90,000 to $100,000 build because he wanted everything. You know, wheels, suspension, turbos, all this stuff. But he was insistent on us fitting this Chinese knockoff kit of the Tech Art kit. And me and Rich looked at it and we're like, "There's no way, man. We're going to go ahead and do this. This is something that I think you're better off having somebody else do." And what he ended up doing is he took it to kind of one of those second-rate shops, and they fit it to the car, glued it, and painted it, and put it on the car. And he brought it back to us. We saw the whole build done. We're like, oh, that's cool. You know, how'd it look? It looked pretty good at the time.
Because those are invasive. You got to cut the recorders off, right?
Yeah, you cut the recorders. You have to. All of the Tech Art kit primarily was glued. Like the side skirts were the biggest challenge. That's where I found those clamps.
Yep.
Because Rich and I could never find an effective way to keep the skirts from falling down. And if you guys have looked at any of the 997, the 991 has a similar construction. The 997 was a little more slopey, so it was harder to make the side skirt sit upright. So you had your vertical line. And that vertical line sat on the rocker, so it actually faced up. So if you had any waviness in it, that was looking straight up at you. There was no way to really hide that reveal line. So what a lot of people did is they double-sided taped, and believe it or not, they caulked the top with black caulk. And we were always like, man, that is hideous. Why would you ever do that?
Was there any input from Tech Art?
Well, that wasn't Tech Art. That was
okay. That was a Chinese kit.
From Tech Art, yeah. From Tech Art, yes, they send you full manuals, and that's how we got those clamps from Germany originally.
I see. Okay.
We got hooked up with Tech Art, supplier of those that they install in Germany, and we bought a full set of those and had them in the shop. But Tech Art sends very detailed stuff. They send their adhesive, just like Urban, just like the other companies, that we work with. And we knew how to install them. That was kind of my point. But the way that these other shops, because in Miami, there's a ton of shops that are installing whatever, you know what I mean? They have that recessed line where it looks like you would put double-sided tape. And that was like the death to all of those shops because they all use double-sided tape. And back then, there was a lot less literature on how you would really, affix those or use urethane. Excuse me. And so they would double-side tape it and stick it on a car and let it run. Well, guess what they did? They double-sided taped it. And in about a month, he came back to us and he's like, hey, guys, my skirts are falling off. And one fell off in the back and was like rubbing on the ground. So it ground like the bottom portion of it off. So Rich and I get in there. And it's always a tough conversation because, the guy spent, a lot of money on the car. He had the car completely repainted. It was custom color, custom wheels, even though it was a Chinese kit, he may have saved 40, 50 grand on the kit, but he still spent probably $80,000, $90,000, So we told them, like, after we look at everything, we're like, this was really installed wrong. To do this the right way, it needs to be glued. And now that this is damaged, we're not willing to fix that piece and put it back on the car because we're not confident that what's going to happen in a year. excuse me, we can install it the right way, but we still don't know what the quality of the part is
Yeah.
until we take it off and we go through everything, and a lot of times that stuff is just junk anyway. So we ended up having a tough conversation and telling him that we weren't willing to do it. He was, of course, upset with us. And I don't think he came back for another year. He went and got it fixed. We saw the car come in for service. It was poorly fixed. And I think shortly after that, he had sold the car. Then he bought another car and he ended up coming in, and we did a simple program for him. And obviously there was no, hey, I'm going to go buy this, I'm going to go buy that. But at that point, I found it easier to then say, hey, we can't install anything that you purchased someplace else or came from someplace else, just because if I have a problem with it, I've got to warranty it. I've got to get a new part. I've got to get it replaced. And you're going to want me to do that. And I'm not willing to do that on a part that you bought and made the decision, because I don't have a relationship with them. And, applying that, most everybody now understands that. They're like, of course, no problem. So we don't really have that challenge anymore, but it is good to bring up because we do get those requests once in a while. Hey, I bought this exhaust. Can you guys install it? And I hate saying no, but
I know,
we've got to also take care of ourselves and make sure that we don't get ourselves into a situation where we're unhappy with it.
Yeah. And that's the tough thing nowadays too, is like once you go online, if you're interested in some product or something, you can pull it up on Alibaba, on eBay, and you're like, it's $800 here, but Label's quoting me, $4,000 for the same exact part.
Yep.
It's not the same exact part.
Yep.
As much
there's
as
a
it
lot
looks
of those,
like it is.
There's a lot of those channels now that are like saying Alibaba parts are the same as like a Mansory part or whatever that comes out. And maybe visibly the stuff is the same, but we've done some, I've done some exploratory purchasing before through Alibaba because I'm curious myself just to see what's
100%.
going on. And a lot of the stuff people don't know is that there's one company that makes multiple people's parts, and nobody...
Interesting world.
Yeah, nobody really wants to say that, and nobody wants, everybody wants to be the builder of the actual part, when in reality they're buying parts from somebody else, or they don't have any input. They're just buying an off-the-shelf part and saying it's their own part.
Yeah.
That's kind of the nature of the world that we live in now, being more global and getting parts from overseas. And don't get me wrong, there's some companies in China that do amazing work.
For sure.
There's
they're building some of the top tier carbon, parts for exotics, anything.
Exactly. No doubt about it. So, using the Chinese terminology is kind of generic and a bad stereotype, because there's a lot of bad Chinese parts that come out of there, but there's also a lot of good. And a lot of the good Chinese parts are not cheap. They are not the Alibaba sellers. Think about it, guys. That would be similar to like GM or somebody saying that they're building parts for people and selling them on Alibaba, as compared to Tim's Machine Shop building parts and selling them on Alibaba.
Yeah.
The big guys in China don't traditionally mess around with Alibaba because they are the wholesalers to the big companies that are designing, building parts. They follow more legal responsibility because it's the wild, wild west over there. And the smaller shops will knock off of them. So I think, for the most part, you might find some stuff that's reasonable, but is the risk worth the reward? That's the other thing. You buy something from there, good luck trying to return it. Good luck trying to get your money back. If it doesn't show up as advertised, you're screwed.
No warranty typically.
No warranty. What are you going to do? Pack it up and ship it back to them?
on a freight shipping that nobody knows how expensive that stuff really is.
Yeah, exactly. So it seems like in theory, when you talk about it just quickly, that like, oh yeah, that you could save a ton of money doing that. Well, if that's your MO, then maybe that works for you. But for us and for our clients, we need to stay with our tried and trues and making sure that, we're using what we're confident with. And we know that if we got a problem with, they're going to be there for us. Every day. 100%. So that's all I got, Rusty. What else we got to talk about?
All right. Any other cool builds that we have? We got a little something, we had.
Is there something over there?
We had something.
My Palm Pilot.
There you go. We had a noisy project. You want to talk about that?
Which one?
The old F12.
Well, the F12, I think we got some content of that out there, right?
That was a screamer.
Did we get any content of that Z07 with the Soul Cats and the LM501?
I don't know if we did an exhaust video on that or not.
I can't remember, because that car was insane loud. So that was the first. Did we do a video of that? Well, I can't
I'm
remember.
not sure. We have so many backlog videos. Sorry,
Yeah, we
guys.
probably blacked out. Sorry, guys. I don't know. But that's, we did a Z07 for a client down in Florida. And basically it was a full bolt on. I mean, absolutely everything you can get for the,
Already a really highly spec car.
Yeah,
It was like
a-
185 or
yeah,
something.
185. And it's ceramic with the red dipped interior. And we did the Label MV 501s, the mesh with the brush lip, which looks sick with that ceramic matrix gray.
Lowered it, proper stance.
Lowered it, did the Soul Performance Cats, did Rift full exhaust, a Venturi. Did you PPF it? Yep.
PPF'd
the
it.
whole car. What else did we have on there? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah. I mean, all I can think
had all
about
the
is
carbon.
is the exhaust.
Yeah.
It was bonkers.
The exhaust was ridiculous. I don't honestly don't know how you can drive that car.
It was close. It's close to the V12 loudness, and I don't think there's anything louder than that. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, and I would never say this, but it's too loud for me.
It was too loud.
I drove that car to get gas and stuff, and I didn't think a mid-engine car could have drone, and it just hummed. If you didn't shift like into sixth, seventh, and eighth,
Yeah.
forget about
But
it.
still, it was still there.
Well,
You could
it
still hear
wasn't
it.
going anywhere.
No. Yeah. Which is interesting because on the SEMA car, we have similar setup with the
the
Miltech
Miltecs.
cats,
Yep.
fully straight piped. But the interesting thing is when you add turbos,
Yep.
completely knocks down the tone.
Yep.
And it's a fully different sound. But that car was teeth shattering loud.
Yeah, it was crazy. We load that on the hauler, and the guy was like, "Holy cow!" He liked it.
Yeah.
But I was like, "Dude, that thing is screaming." And the client liked it, so it fit what he was looking for, and it looked insane. So I was really happy with how that turned out.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've had so many cars in the past few months. We've had the F12 straight pipes. We did another 765 LT, an orange one. With the Dymags.
Oh yeah, let's talk about
the Label
Yeah,
wheels.
let's talk about that because that was a cool one.
Lowered
There's
it.
something about those wheels on that car.
Yeah, it's
nasty.
I don't know. That thing is those cars are special. We did that reveal in the summer at our event downtown here, and everybody loves that car. Like,
Papaya Spark.
yeah,
It was
people
sick
take pictures
color.
of it all the time wherever it's at, and tag us or send it over to me. It's cool to see that, and I think we've got probably one other one, or maybe some other things coming in similar to that I'm not really going to leak out,
Don't give them any
ahead of
secret.
time. We're not even covering the stuff that we've already done, so we're kind of all over the place as far as what kind of content we're bringing out.
We
But
can't even remember most of the time.
no, I know we have like a big winter. Of big builds, like significant builds that I'm excited to get through, show people,
Yeah, that's what I think is a little different too. People not knowing, that we're from Michigan is we have a shortened driving season. So, come wintertime, those cars are going in storage. They can't be driven. So
Yep.
that's the time people start thinking about what they want to do. And
Yep. That's our big project season.
Yeah.
Like in the summer, I always tell people they come over, and we might have 5, 6, 7 cars in the shop. And they're like, "Man, it's packed in here." And we're like, "No,
Just wait.
It's actually, you can shoot a cannonball through here in the winter."
Yeah.
We've had between the buildings, we've had like 16 cars here, 17 cars at times, all in different stages of, parts or
Yep.
waiting for the build, plus cars, like at the carbon shop or, getting painted, something like that. So this time of year is hectic as far as balancing, our schedule in working through a project start to finish, because they go through multiple stages. You have to still keep the car mobile. We only have a certain amount of lifts. So to keep a lift open, to do mechanical, and we're usually pretty good with that stuff, but it's always something you got to be mindful of, because if a part gets delayed, we've had this, a part gets delayed for 60 days, and now all of a sudden our car is like in the middle of where it needs to be at, and now we have to figure out how to work around everybody else's and work that back in. And sure enough, another car has a part that's waiting, so then we get into this weird limbo. So as much as you try to schedule, you still have to be fluid, because that stuff is going to happen
No matter what.
Yeah. The only thing we're lucky with is, like, with your work, we can we know.
You can plan it a little better, but during the winter months, I mean, we kind of deal with the same thing as like the drying out period.
Oh, yeah.
It's what I'm dealing with right now is like the cars just take a little bit longer, and it's, you know, a little longer than I want to just be sitting, you know, because it just takes up space at that point. You know, the car's been done for a week and a half, but you're just, you know, it's just sitting there taking up space. So, yeah, you know, it's just a learning curve trying to manage that schedule and get a proper system figured out. But yeah, you kind of got to just be flexible with it and never know what's coming through the door with packages and, you know, parts damaged, whatever, you know, clear coat, crappy, anything. We've dealt with it all.
That's why we try to overly communicate with everybody, so we can set that expectation that when they drop their car off, you know, we're going to do our best and we're working towards this goal, and we'll get there. It's just a matter, sometimes it takes a different path than we had planned on. And everybody's been really cool about it. I think, you know, I'm really proud to say our clients have to be some of the best clients I've ever worked with, and that's kind of been my goal working in the business, is to attract the clients that you can be really good with, you know. And some people think it's like, well, you have to do it your way or the highway. No, it's not that. It's, we want to be respected for what we do. You know, we want our opinion to be respected. I think that's everybody's goal. Like when you work, you want your work to be respected and appreciated. No matter what it is you're doing. And to finally be at a point now where when people come in the door, you know, they're so excited to see what we could do for them, you know, whether it's PPF, whether it's vinyl, whether it's just a set of wheels, whether it's a full wide body. The excitement level behind being, you know, at Label and what we might be able to create with them, like that makes me feel really good. And that's where that passion comes in, you know, going back all the way to the beginning, is like when you see an individual, if you care about it, to me, you see an individual excited to be in something that you've created and something that you can offer somebody, and they want to be involved with it. I don't think there's probably a better feeling for like creativity in that regard, because that makes you want to work so much harder to make them happy, because they are so excited and they are, you know, they want to have that opportunity to do business with you.
Yeah. And it's a cool feeling to like be valued in what your opinion is. Like you've built up, you know, this kind of a legacy of how you build cars, the little details. And then people come in, it's like, I've got this car, I have some ideas. What would you do to the car? And then we kind of go down that path, which is really cool to see. And especially on the bigger projects, you can kind of go crazy and take big risks, but you know, at the end of the day, typically they turn out, which is, it's cool to be a part of.
That's really unique for me, because it's taken me years and years and years to become confident in exactly who I am and like my vision for things, you know, because when I used to build cars, I would do some things that might be a little out of the box, but they were detail oriented. And I would always have those like mechanical or non-visionary people that would look at it and be like, I don't really see that coming together. But then once it was all done, they were always like, oh man, that's killer, you know? So now I have more confidence when I say, you know, I think this wheel, it may be slightly uncomfortable to make this decision, like the coloring or something like that, but I'm going to trust myself in this case, where in the past I may have floated towards a safer choice just because I was unsure of myself years ago. But now I feel pretty confident in saying, you know, and I'm not reinventing the wheel, not creating anything that nobody's already done. It's just like tailoring a specific solution for your client or for a need or whatever it is, and taking a very small detail that maybe, you know, 70, 80% of the people don't even really pay attention to. It
goes unnoticed.
It could be meaningless to them, but to us, like that's the excitement behind it. It's like, yeah, you really have to look for it, or you really have to know.
And then when somebody points that out, you're like, yeah, we put that there.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's really cool about SEMA too, because, you know, everybody in the industry are people usually like that. You know, they're looking at insane details. They've seen all of the big hoopla, you know, unless you've just came to SEMA for the first or second time. If you've been going there for years, I mean, the Ring brothers, we'll talk about them during SEMA, but the level of detail they put into their cars, the general person just isn't seeing it.
Yeah.
You know, so they would never equate why it would cost so much to build a car like that. And that's kind of similar to what we do. People won't understand it because they don't understand that level of detail that we're doing and what it takes to do that. And the people that do see it appreciate it. And it's not a dollar or an investment thing. This is a unique, special experience for me. It's tailored to me. It's unlike any place else. And that's why we get cars now shipped to us, you know, without even knowing a client. And that is a huge compliment. You know, that's something that I couldn't be more proud of, and also holds me and you to a different standard that, you know, these people are coming out of market to get us their car because they want us to work on
Yeah,
it.
knowing that they have 10 shops within 50-mile radius that
Yeah.
can do theoretically the same work.
Yep. And we're not talking about small areas. We're talking about big metropolitan areas, I'm really proud of kind of where we've taken it within the last 6 months and where we're heading in the future.
Yeah. Let's wrap it up. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys next time.
We'll see you guys in the studio.
Episode 2.
Episode 2 or 1.575.
Let's go.
Let's go.
All right. See you.